evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another amazing episode of the podcast. I say the only podcast, certainly the greatest podcast, shining a light on the drive-in culture and its magical revival here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Today I got two co-hosts, the three-headed monster, I like to say. Jeff, say hello, my friend.
Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a nice day.
Mark in the house.
Hello once again.
And we're super excited. We're going to get into kind of a mishmash of fun stuff that we got for you guys in the podcast. And I think first we're going to jump into kind of the process that we just went through with closing down the theater. For those of you guys that are maybe listening to this in the future, we just closed up for our 2021 season. It's been about a month, right, Jeff?
Yes, exactly a month. Yep.
And of course, we get a little trickle of fun after we close with our crew party. And of course, Thanksgiving falls in there. So certainly a lot of crazy stuff goes into the season. But once we get into the off season, and Jeff will attest to this, there's not a ton that goes into closing down the theater. Am I right?
No, not really. There's several things, but none of them really take a lot of time.
But certainly on our end, we do the kind of casual cleanup, things like that, trying to make sure that everything's buttoned up as far as anything we don't want to keep out in the cold. We always like to take electronics and things like that out. But, why don't you get into it? You've been closing down this theater for many, many years in the wintertime.
Yes. First of all, the concession stand gets cleaned very well. I know Beth, well, as we all do, and she does a fantastic job cleaning. Because I tell her, the more you do in the fall after we close, the less you're going to have to do in the spring. If she cleans it right and gets it done right, then in the spring, oh yeah, sure, everything needs a light going over because everything has a small layer of dust on it, but it's no real big deal, right? As long as it was cleaned well in the fall. After that, then I get the water turned off. I call the plumbers, they come in, they turn the water off, and all of the pipes have to be blown out with 75 pounds per square inch of air pressure. That gets all the water out of the pipes. Obviously, as the folks out there know, you leave water in the pipes and it freezes, it's going to break the pipe, and in the spring, you're going to have a big mess. So all the pipes get blown out till there's no water left in them. And then I'm kind of proud to say that after 20 years, I've never broken a pipe in that theater. I've never broken a pipe. So that attests more to the plumber's accuracy. I actually got good plumbers, let's put it that way. Also, anything outside, traffic cones, portable barriers, anything like that has to be brought into the concession stand. And this does not reflect on the wonderful customers that we have. But if you leave that kind of stuff outside, it won't be there in the spring. Somebody's going to come along and want a souvenir, and they'll take them, even if it's a traffic cone or something like that. Also, the ticket booth gets completely cleaned out. Again, if there's something in there that somebody thinks, ooh, that's neat, they'll force the door open and take it. And I don't want that happening anywhere on the property. So the ticket booth has to be cleaned out. We also disconnect the electricity from the ticket booth. So if somebody would happen to get in there, they can't screw around and cause a short or cause a fire or anything like that. So the electricity is disconnected from the ticket booth. Other than that, the tractor goes inside. Everything just gets put away in the stand until spring. I even take down the AM/FM antenna has to come down and gets put inside the building. It's a pretty complete job. It's a pretty thorough job. Of course, as the folks know, over the winter, all the letters come off the marquee, and the Crystal Springs Tree Farm puts up their banner for the wintertime. That's something that Joe worked out years ago, so that is more him than us.
Yeah, that's certainly a sign of the off season. When people see that the Tree Farm sign goes up, they know we got a couple months until we get into the Mahoning fun. I'm actually going to swing up there tomorrow, take all the letters down, maybe put up a nice little holiday message just for a photo, and then say adios for the season, off season, that is. But yeah, it's, same thing with the digital booth. Like you said, it's really all about pulling everything that you want to take home with you and make sure that it's secure. And
Yeah.
really, a lot of that has to do with weather more than security, because we have some security on the lot.
We have a burglar alarm system. I'm not ashamed to say that.
Oh, sure.
So, the place is protected. But yes, and there's things that have to come out of the 35 millimeter booth too. All the sound processing cards, the intermission reels, the AM and the FM transmitter, all that stuff comes home because it just shouldn't be in freezing cold weather.
That's always the thing at the end of the year is we got to pull out electronics. I used to pull all the records out of there because that's another one of those things that you don't really think about is your media and, your electronics, things like that. So as far as the closing down of the theater, there's really not much that goes into it, just like the simplicity of the business on the surface, as far as it just being a screen, a building, and a marquee, if you look at it in that vague terms. It's, kind of making sure everything's buttoned up, making sure everything's good to go for next year.
Right.
And Beth really killed it this year with making sure that everything was closed down, cleaned. Like you said, makes things that much easier as we come back in when things hopefully start to warm up a little bit in April.
Speaking of cold weather, every year we have people ask us, are we going to stay open past a certain date? Are we going to be open in November? Are we going to be open in December? Can you tell everyone, and we've mentioned it before, but I don't think Jeff has discussed this, why we close at the end of October every season?
Yes. Number one, it's a necessary break for all of us. Oh, sure, I miss it. I know you guys do too, but it's a necessary break. Why the end of October is because it just gets too cold. Even after college and high school goes back in, we notice a drop off. But then when it really starts getting cold, say beginning of October, middle of October, it drops off even more. And if we were to go into November, it just gets to the point where even our greatest fans, even, all the people we love will stop coming because it just gets too cold. And that's also why we don't open, except for last year, because we wanted to make up for a little bit of the COVID detriment that we suffered from. But usually it's the last weekend in April, and we don't open earlier for the same reason. It's just too cold. Sometimes even the last weekend in April is still pretty cold. So those are the reasons. Plus, it gives us 6 months on and then 6 months off. So it's very well balanced, and everybody gets a chance to recover. And, Mark, Virgil, myself, and others, we need that time to plan for the next year. You just don't go into it blind. So it works out very well.
And the equipment in the projection booth also can suffer with the and you had said the lubrication in the 35 projectors gets a little thick.
It gets too thick. Here's something probably most people don't know, but 35 millimeter projectors have as close of tolerances as an automobile engine. That's how well they're made, with tiny parts and things that you don't always see. But they have, and that's why they have an oil sump like a car does, because oil has to be continuously splashed on the gears and on all the sliding parts and stuff, because they have very close tolerances. And if you get into cold weather and that oil gets too thick, it's not going to lubricate properly, and then you can damage the projector. Now, we could run portable heaters. In fact, we do it. I mean, at the end of April, from like maybe September on, we have heaters in the booth to get it up to a decent temperature. But that, when real cold weather comes, even the portable heaters will not be enough to keep that oil thinned out. So that's another reason we have to close, is because of the temperature in the projectors.
Good evening, folks. It's nice to have you with us, and we think you'll agree it's great to go to a drive-in show.
A drive-in show, great to go.
Especially our drive-in, where movies are better than ever.
Great fun going. The movies we're always showing are the best here at our show, drive-in show.
The best in entertainment and the best in facilities, too. All the comforts of home.
So yeah, in the off season, even already in the off season, Jeff and I meet weekly, like to go grab a dinner, talk about, now it's been a lot of wrapping up of the season. Really, once we get into January, it starts shifting into calendar stuff and plans for the new year. But a lot of stuff goes into the planning of booking the films and getting the films to us. That's something that you wanted to talk about a little bit, right, Mark? The audience may be into.
Yeah, just the process of between getting the idea for a film to be run, how we acquire it, how we locate prints, what that costs us. I know it was very eye-opening to me as a avid moviegoer to find out that movie theaters really make almost nothing from the tickets. Much more so true of first run titles, which might be interesting to talk about too, because both of you guys have dealt with first run.
Yeah.
The money really is the concession stand, but just the whole process of how a print of, say, Big Top Pee-wee gets to us from the moment that you have the idea to the moment it hits the screen.
Well, coming up with the idea of playing Big Top Pee-wee is its own beast.
and reward.
I know it's a natural choice, but yeah, a lot of that stuff happens again in the off season. We brew, and this certainly isn't just a me and Jeff thing. Even during the season, Mark and James certainly are go-tos, and really a lot of people on the crew, the core crew, just to be like, hey, is this a good idea? What do you think would be a good play for this event? What titles should we play? So it really is a big collaborative effort, and I say a creative effort. That's one of the most creative and exciting times of the year, when we start really firing off and being like, okay, we know what seeds we're going to plant, and now it's just a matter of trying to spend the couple months that we have not just promoting it, but really making sure that it's going to be a Mahoning event. But as far as the booking of the films, a lot of studios, now that we are about to roll into December, a lot of studios won't let you book super far in advance. And I think the reason behind that, and Jeff may be able to speak on it, is that they have these blackout dates. They have these things that pop up where all of a sudden something isn't available. Right. And maybe they don't want to get locked into the idea of, once we book a film, it's pretty much a contract. They can't really pull out on us. We can't really pull out on them. So maybe I'm wrong, Jeff. What do you think?
No, you're absolutely right. They don't book that far in advance, because if they're going to have a remake of a film come out like Willy Wonka last year or the year before, they'll put it on a do not touch list. In other words, they will not license the rights to that film because they think it's going to interfere with the business that the remake is going to do. They're afraid that people, will run and say, we want to see the original. We don't want to see that new one. In some cases, that's true. In some cases, it's not. They do want to see the remake. But the studios don't want to take a chance on that. So if they have a remake coming out or a re-release of a film, they'll turn to the other theater and say, okay, you can't get that, say, for the next 3 months or something like that.
And it makes sense. I mean, I always thought it could be market confusion as well. These studios spend millions of dollars to promote the new Willy Wonka movie, and somebody sees Willy Wonka on a marquee,
Yeah, they run off and they're actually seeing the old film instead of the new one.
Totally. Maybe it has a lot going. Well, it has a ton going into it. But, I don't want to play the studios in a negative manner, because I consider them amazing partners in what we do, all the individuals at the studios. But let's be honest, it's a money market. It's a situation where they're looking out for their money, their overhead. And we got lucky those first couple of years, which is a really fun topic to get into for somebody who might be interested. We were blessed with flat rate bookings for many, many years, for pretty much up until the pandemic.
I was going to say, I told you what would happen with that once we got really popular.
Oh, yeah. Jeff always said, once we start doing well, they're going to get away from this flat rate booking, which I'll explain. Instead of a percentage of the box office going to the studio, we would be able to book it for a flat rate. Now, albeit that's a very high rate and a very big risk, especially for our early years, as documented in At the Drive-In, Al's film, available now on all your major streaming sites. It's at least $1,000 to book a double feature for us, being a 35 millimeter outfit. So we were lucky back then to think of it in that terms, because now every single studio has mandated percentages, even for repertory theaters like the Mahoning. And I think a lot goes into it. Jeff is probably absolutely right. The studios know how well we're doing. The Mahoning is no secret to anybody anymore.
They most certainly do. Yeah.
But I think it became a thing as the pandemic swept in and COVID closed down a lot of indoor theaters. Everybody had to go retro. So it became obvious, I think, to the studios, and the light bulb went off where it's like, why even consider doing anything but a percentage? And for us, it's a gamble always to put on a show. It's becoming less and less of a gamble. But for the studios, they want their cut. Like I said, it's the norm in the first run market, but because retro became the norm in the market for a good period of time when everything closed down, it's now, I guess, considered the way to do things.
Exactly. And those theaters, when they slowly limped back to life again and all they could show was retro, of course, those films had to be on digital because all the indoor theaters converted to digital years ago. So they can't, just ship out 35 millimeter film willy-nilly. Most places can't show 35 millimeter anymore.
Right.
So they had to have all these old retro films put on hard drives for all the digital theaters. And as far as we go, we never really had a hiccup except for having to be closed. We opened a few months late the other year because of COVID, which hurt us a little bit, but not real bad. The audiences came back because, as Virgil would say, we were basically the only game in town. So the people came out to us just to get out of the house, much less watch our movies and eat our food. So we were very important in that respect too. And then, like I said, once theaters now are starting to get back to completely first run, it leaves the retro market pretty much open to us like it's always been.
When the pandemic first hit, I was just getting out of the indoor theater, the big box multiplex theaters.
And let the folks know that is what you did during the off season for a couple of years. You actually worked at an indoor theater.
Well, that's always been the case, as again documented in at the drive-in. We have always worked multiple jobs, to keep ourselves afloat as well as the theater. We've been incredibly blessed in a strange way with the pandemic. It's so strange to think about it that way. But it really delivered so much attention to not just the Mahoning, but the drive-in culture in general, that it really gave us that boost. And on top of that, this year, more than any other year, the team is on fire in the off season as far as a means to bring in an income in the off season. Normally, it's October 31st, and the next day, bang, we have no money coming in for 6 months. We still have expenses.
Yes, we do, but
no income. Yeah, but
exactly.
It really worked out amazingly. And like Jeff said, it's always been that balance. And for me, I ran several of the big indoor chains. You could probably guess which ones they were, but I know right at the end they were trying to sell your AMC and your Regals these DCP packs where it was like 4 movies for X amount of money. Those you could get at a flat rate, and then it was a percentage on top of that. So that's kind of what we're into now, is what's called a versus term. So they want X amount of money as a guarantee, and then they also want on top of that a percentage of the box office. Now, for an indoor theater, or a first run theater I should say, they take a majority of the box office. We're talking 50, 60, 70, 80% of the box office, and leaving the theaters with very little.
Right.
And it just goes to show, again, how important the concession stand is, and really starts getting the ball rolling with why your popcorn costs $20 when you go to, a big indoor theater. They're trying to get you. They're trying to get the profit anywhere that they can. But for us, that's what it is. It's flat terms, usually a versus percentage, and it's worked out well. I think for us going into it, we always hoped there would be a no risk situation. Very early on, we would book public domain titles. We would work with Harry and have really little to no overhead for our nights together. some of our nights together. But now it's at a point where pretty much every show that we put on draws enough of a crowd that we, are making a profit.
Yes, yes. Nobody is getting rich here, but we constantly, I would say, every year do a little bit better than the year before. So we've been on an uphill swing for several years now, and I pray to God that holds true. And it's not just because we're greedy, we're money hungry, and stuff like that, but the more and more people that we can attract to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, it's like Virgil said earlier, it reflects on all the drive-ins. If we do well, hey, maybe the drive-in down the street does a little bit better too. So it's all,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. It's all to help the drive-in culture, not just us.
Yeah. And, again, not to harp on this blessed situation, but for those of you guys that have been following us this year, the Mahoning was already legendary before this season with the documentary and the guest stars and being attached to certain projects and blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on. But then you tie in the threat of it all going away this year, and then the victory of saving it as a community. It lifted us up to a level we never could have imagined. And we thought we were there already,
Yeah.
working with Bruce Campbell and, pulling in sold out crowds. And it really goes to show that, a lot of people say, like, it gives me faith in the mom and pop. Like, the mom and pop can really win out sometimes. And I think it should just give people faith in passion and love of a culture and just, a community in general, because that's really what the Mahoning is. Obviously, we all work very hard to feed this puppy, but it's a loving community that clearly loves what it is and what we do, to the point where they'll stand by it till the day they die, which is incredible. And any business would die for an audience like that.
Right, exactly. So going forward, we're going to do what we've always done. Get the best films, in some cases get the quirkiest films. The staff from myself on down is impeccable. All the managers, all the kids do a wonderful job. And we want to keep that going, not just for ourselves, but for all of our customers too, who look at us as an event destination, a place to go. Hey, there's always something happening at the Mahoning. And Virgil has mentioned this before. That's what we try to do. We try to make every weekend an event. Sure, some are bigger than others, but every weekend there's something to look forward to. There's some kind of an event going on. Right, Virgil?
Absolutely. And it even extends even further than that, where every night we're open, it's an event. It's crazy because, the Tuesday night thing I thought was the biggest experiment, quote unquote, that we had, risk that we took.
Yeah.
Because we never even thought, when we first got started, that we would be able to go into weekdays.
Right.
That there would be a draw for weekdays. And it has created its own community, of people who can't come on the weekends because of their jobs or whatever else. And,
right.
The diehards are always there and looking forward to Tuesdays. And again, it's just an incredible upswing that we have seen. And we know how blessed we are, because even in the off season, as we are planning segments and things to talk about on the podcast, I pitched it to the guys. Let's do drive in the news, news stories across the country about drive-ins. And it took me about 3 minutes of perusing and researching to see, unfortunately, it's a lot of bad news. It's, this site has been approved for demolition. This old drive-in site now is going to be an apartment complex. This place is in danger. Every now and then you'll get a really great story, which we hope to shine a light on here throughout the podcast, and we'll make a point to do so. Yeah. But like Mark said, when I brought it up, maybe that's an even bigger caveat into people's minds to say, hey, if there's a drive-in near me, support it.
Exactly. Because even in this era of people being aware that a lot of drive-ins are in danger, they're still getting torn down. And people know, hey, we got to protect this place. We got to go. And in some cases, even people flocking to these drive-ins won't do it because, won't cut any mustard because the owners are just dead set against, they don't want to continue with them. A lot of them, I've read in articles, they're getting older now. They want to retire and they can't find people to take over the drive-in. So the only thing they can do is sell them.
Yeah.
So, and usually when you sell them, that's bad news because the new owners of the property don't want to drive in.
And again, that's why we keep harping on this divine, blessed situation, because we know we are a very, very rare situation with seeing
Amen.
all the drive-ins that are struggling to either A, pull in audiences, or B, keep their leases, or, their land at the worst case scenario. So again, if you guys have a drive-in within driving distance, make a point to go out and make that memory, because
Right.
we'll all say it until the day we die. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for our early drive-in memories. And, all of our parents were amazing for being able to give that to us, to see where it led.
Exactly. I'm going to tell you a quick story about a drive-in that to this day, they still exist. But the problem is the people that are running the drive-in don't own the property. Now, that's the case with us too, but I'm talking about a different drive-in. I don't want to mention their names, but there is a drive-in out there that is owned by a grocery store
Right.
chain. And the grocery store chain, which I also won't mention the name of, they lease the drive-in back to the people that are running it. But these people know from year to year, they're working under a sword, so to speak, because any year this grocery chain is going to say to them, okay, this is your last year because we're going to build a grocery store here now. So every year they come back and they don't know if they're going to have a year after that, because eventually the grocery store is going to pull the plug and say, okay, we're going to build a grocery store here. You guys are done. I would not want to work under those circumstances, especially since I love our drive-in the way I do. I can't imagine people working under those conditions where every year could be their last and there's nothing they can do about it. The grocery store won't sell them the property.
Yeah.
They want it for a grocery store, but they're not quite ready yet. We'll give you a couple, but one of these years it's going to be gone.
That's the shame. And we can certainly relate, even though it was a very short term, but, just the idea of feeling helpless and loving something so much. And
Yeah.
It really rocked all of us to our core, and our audience, rightfully so.
Yes. Fortunately, it was only a couple of days because of the audience response we got to the, and I'll just say the energy company. If it wasn't for the audience, I mean, it
Who knows?
could have turned out totally different. But
Yeah.
thanks to them, it didn't.
We accepted, I took Nancy to the awards gala. We accepted the Business of the Year award from the chamber, Lehigh Carbon Chamber. And I said that in the acceptance speech. I said, this could have been the last year for the Mahoning, it being in your guys' backyard for the last 72 years. And,
Yes, exactly.
so many people take that into their heart, especially when we're talking about the local community, because they all have those memories going to the drive-in, whether it was with their parents or as teenagers or taking their kids or whatever the case is. That's why I love the local community, just being out and about in it.
Yeah.
Is, people now know us, they recognize us, they know what we do. And to have strangers come up and throw praise or throw amazing stories at us of the drive-in, it's heartwarming. It really makes everything that we do so worth it.
Exactly. And the folks out there that know that there are still some drive-ins like this grocery store chain drive-in that I mentioned that are in trouble, I say it on the microphone every now and then. I should probably say it more often, but I say, this drive-in, our drive-in, is dedicated to all of those that never made it this far.
Right. All of our childhood drive-ins,
Yeah, they're all gone. I showed you, Virgil, where the one we went to most. I showed you where that was.
Yeah,
You saw it.
and it's heartbreaking because that nothing's been developed on it. That's an even bigger heartbreaker. Is I'm sure at some point somebody had plans for it, but there could still be a drive-in there. It's criminal.
It's just an overgrown field.
My former drive-in is a parking lot, which I think is the fate of probably most of them.
There you go. Yep, mine's a Target.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very hard to go to that Target whenever I actually have to do it.
Yeah,
It's always like, I feel like I'm walking on sacred land here,
I know exactly what you mean.
My drive-in, the Claremont, New Hampshire drive-in I used to go to, was the drive-in lot was right next door to a Kmart plaza, and they tore down the drive-in
Oh boy.
and they built a new Kmart, like 100 feet away from where the existing Kmart was, and I always deeply resented that entire plaza. And eventually that Kmart went out of business. So my attitude was always, fine, you tear down the drive-in to build a Kmart, and what happens? It goes out of business. It goes out of business like 35 years later, but still, wouldn't it be better if it was still a drive-in?
When you give it all you've got, when you know you're good, when you know you're special, then no matter what anybody says, you know. Oh, do you know? 20th Century Fox presents Tim Matheson and Susan Blakely in Dreamer. It's everything you wanted to be, and you're gonna love it. Dreamer, rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Besides the idea of the news segment, we have a ton of stuff on the docket. We've been having a lot of fun in the off season. And Mark, why don't you tell the people about the amazing experience that we had with our very first digital screening?
Okay, this was fun. So I had the idea about virtual screenings for the theater in general, which we're still looking into, because during the pandemic, a lot of movie theaters were closed for, a chunk of last year. But the way they found to attempt to still, in quotes, show movies and have an income stream was to do virtual screenings, where you would buy a ticket online and that would give you a link to watch a movie, usually at your convenience. Sometimes it would be at an appointed time, like you were in a theater. And out of that pondering, I thought, why don't we apply that idea to the Patreon screenings that we're doing? In case somehow you haven't heard me talk about this before, I'll tell you again, or for the first time. With our Patreon membership, there are 3 levels. There's a $4.99, a $9.99, and a $19.99. And for that $19.99, during the season that we're open at the drive-in, once a month we have a free screening for our members where we play something from our vault, some oddball grindhouse movie that, to our knowledge, has not hit the Mahoning screen since it originally came out. And it's a lot of fun. I do a DJ set. Trailers from my collection, and we have a grand old time. Val will make a dessert. Beth will do a food special. And I wanted a way for that fun to continue in the off season. So I said, why don't we try a virtual screening? So basically the way it works is, for those top tier people, they get a Zoom link on the day of the show. I have a pre-recorded DJ set that's an hour, which is roughly what I would do before a show at the theater. And the movie's always a mystery. Nobody knows. We'll give everybody a tip as to the genre. So if they really don't want to see a Bavarian Western, they'll know this is the weekend. Or my child is studying Bavarian Westerns. This is an ideal time.
I'm in.
To introduce them to mountains that kind of look like Montana, but really are Bavaria. And so we picked a film from my voluminous digital archive that's not available anywhere on video. And we played the DJ set that was pre-recorded. Then Virgil and I came on briefly on camera to say hello. And then we just rolled the film with, and I had edited together about a 20-minute pre-show of trailers and snack bar ads and things that flowed right into the movie. So it was just like you were watching it at the theater. I was telling people, go sit in your car and watch this on your phone or your laptop, and it'll be just like you're there. And Zoom allows a chat function, text chat typing function. So that was up. So if anybody wanted to, crack wise or give information or ask questions or anything, that's an option. You could just watch it, or you could watch it with that. And we had, I think 26, 27 people show up, which I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or so Simplex members. To me, this was cool because it allowed us a way to, in quotes, get together in the off season like we did at the theater once a month. But also it allows people who could never make it out because they had to work the next day or they live too far away. I mean, we have Patreon Simplex members on the West Coast, so people theoretically could all join in. So we did a prize giveaway, Kino Lorber. We still have a bunch of discs left over from our giveaways or from our raffles for this season. So we're going to give one of those away randomly to whoever, I basically look at everybody who is participating in that Zoom chat. I find their membership numbers and I do a random draw. And it was a good 2-hour session, 2.5, maybe 3 with the DJ set.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. People really enjoyed it. I can't wait. December 16th is our next one. And we're going to do them once a month until we open the theater again. And who knows, maybe we'll still do them during the season so that those people who can't make it out can still have fun. We'll see. But now we're tapping into the AGFA library, the American Genre Film Archive, based in Austin. Insanely huge film library, but they also are the rights holder theatrical distribution for tons of film libraries. So we are culling rare and oddball titles from that to be our secret screenings moving forward.
Great.
Yeah. When this all started, I knew it was going to be fun, but the experience really kind of blew me away, because it was such an extension of what we do. It had very Mahoning centric feel to it. Like Mark said, if you close your eyes at the theater, you would have never known that it was the off season. More than anything, it was a great way to bring the community together. Like you said, we all had a really great time. The idea that we get to continue the fun in the off season with you guys is super appealing. Being able to deliver shows and legitimate shows, but being a 35 millimeter drive-in, the only 35 millimeter drive-in, there are a ton of titles we will never play at the Mahoning under the guise of we only play 35 millimeters. So that's what I think is most exciting about this virtual screening idea, is maybe we can tap into some of these amazing Mahoning centric titles that just aren't available on 35, that we'll never be able to play, but we can still give it the Mahoning treatment. So much fun.
And it's a way to we're still putting on a show. We're still getting that thrill of programming and all of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
exactly. That's a great way to look at it. Even during the off season, we're still putting on a show.
Yeah, because you guys know it. We never want this to end. If we could be open and physically be able to do it every day of the week, we certainly would. But it's a situation now. This isn't a push for Patreon, but if you guys are into it, it's a great time to jump over, because we're trying to work it out where it's going to be open to all levels of the Patreon. You can kind of give it a taste, see if you're into it. And if this thing goes the way I feel it's going, just like everything the Mahoning does, we kind of learn from the experience, tack new things on, build from it. And where this could go for the Mahoning audience, it's very exciting. So stay tuned to all that stuff. Again, if you guys want to jump in on that support team, the bandwagon there, patreon.com/Mahoning Drive-In.
Candy is dandy at the Drive-In Theater. Smooth, rich chocolate, chewy caramels, or creamy nougats. Whatever your favorite is, you'll find it here at the Refreshment Center. Come on in and take your pick. Treat yourself to some delicious candy.
Of course, coming up with segments, things like that, we always ask the audience if you guys want to get in on the action, if you have recommendations, topics you want to talk about, get in on the fun that we're having here at the podcast. There's a couple ways that you can do it. Probably the easiest way to get us is through the email, mahoningdrivein-theater@gmail.com, or through the website, mahoningdit.com. Or Mark, there's a really fun way that they can leave a voicemail message for us.
If you go to our anchor.fm website, that's the official site for this podcast. That's where you can then get links to some of the other places you can find us, but you can also leave a voicemail there. So if you go to www.anchor.fm/Mahoning Drive-In, there's a button that says message, and you can leave an up to 60-second message. If you want to leave a message that's longer than that, just leave several. I will edit them together and they will sound seamless when played upon the program. It can be anything from a drive-in memory or a topic or an anecdote or a question, whatever you like. We gather them all and we play them on the show and react to them accordingly.
So I pitched Mark and the guys at the beginning of the season, once the podcast was starting to roll around in our brains, about a segment called Off the Wall, which is very simply just us talking about movies that we have in our collection that are literally sitting in front of us in some cases. So being that it is the holiday season, are you guys into talking about your favorite Christmas movie?
Sure.
So I don't know if you guys have the traditions around the house or in the family, but for me, I have a very, very special place for White Christmas, we actually watched it the other night. And it's just one of those movies because I've seen it every single holiday. We normally watch it as a family. I used to watch it with my mom all the time, right after Thanksgiving, normally like that Thanksgiving weekend. So I still try to keep that tradition alive, and it sweeps me up every single time. It's one of those movies that just is transcendent. It's timeless, even though it's clearly dated and set in a certain time. It just works on me every single time. How do you guys feel about White Christmas?
That is also my favorite Christmas film.
Oh, I love it.
A lot of people will tell you their favorite Christmas film is It's a Wonderful Life. And I always liked that film, but I'm like you. I thought White Christmas is definitely my favorite Christmas film. The singing, the dancing, the fact that it was the first film in VistaVision.
Yes.
And yet, yes, it is dated. I mean, it was released in 1954 and it looks it.
Yeah. And the post-war over arc.
Exactly. But it's a great film. It's a great film. It's even hard for me to tell you what my favorite parts are because I love the whole thing from beginning to end. It's just great.
I'll tell you my favorite part.
Yeah.
Vera Ellen, when she's doing that Mandy rehearsal number.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. Nancy hates it because I have to comment on it every time we watch it. She doesn't have a speck of fat on her body.
No.
She's got the smallest waist and the thinnest legs you've ever seen in your life.
Yes.
And it's a flawless number, and it blows me away every single time. So many favorite moments, but for me, that always makes me laugh because Nancy hates it. She's like, I get it with the legs.
Exactly. Yeah, Vera Ellen is great. Rosemary Clooney is fantastic. Of course, Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye, they're great.
And the music, you know.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. It's just a great, fun film. How about talking about Vera Ellen? How about when she does that tap number where her foot is like barely moving? And she just,
yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
she had that much control in her foot to just wiggle it. It's just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, being a theater kid growing up on a stage, I looked at this movie very much as performers at the top of their game and the way that old Hollywood used to be.
Yeah.
And old Hollywood stars used to be. It's like they were all around talents, singing, dancing, acting, doing it all, you know?
Yep, they certainly had to be for that film.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, when they sing the snow number in the train, I could do that key for key. I always said it would be really fun if we start doing video segments, and we'll just get 4 of us around and we'll start doing that snow number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Little happy holiday treat for the peeps. Directed by Michael Curtiz, who, he directed everything, such a classic director. Casablanca,
yep.
Adventures of Robin Hood, Captain Blood, so many classics, but certainly recommend that in a big bad way. It's not the holidays for me until I see Vera Ellen's legs.
Yeah, there you go.
How about you, Mark? What's your
I was able to see, White Christmas is one that I did not see a lot growing up for some reason. It was either lack of interest or opportunity, but the Colonial Theater in Keene, New Hampshire, where I lived for many years, ran it on film several years ago, and it was a beautiful print, which is now me saying, guess what? At least once there was a beautiful 35 print of that available.
Hey, yeah. Christmas in July.
The Colonial that I went to is similar to the one in Phoenixville, in that it's a huge 900-seat movie theater, single big screen, balcony. And I was in the balcony with a pretty full audience watching that, some of whom somewhat annoyingly were singing along with some of the songs. But it was just beautiful to see that on the big screen, and also to see a benevolent Dean Jagger in a film.
Yeah.
Because when I think Dean Jagger, I think of him in Vanishing Point, where he's benevolent, but he's like a desert hobo. And or am I confusing that with his Partridge Family episode? Maybe both. And he's like a bad guy in Game of Death, I believe. But anyway, it's really cliche to say it now, but I think if you ask me, knee-jerk reaction, it might be A Christmas Story for me, which a lot of people are tired of because it gets played literally endlessly for days and everything. Right. I saw it the weekend it came out. My mother, my best friend, and my sister went to see it in the theater at a matinee, and we just loved it. It was so funny and wild and warm and out of this world and out there. Caught it a bunch on like HBO, and then it kind of went dormant for a decade or two. It was occasionally shown on TV, and then TBS went crazy with the 24-hour thing, and the merchandising went crazy.
Oh, it's
and
nuts.
Yeah.
I think that can cause people to push back against a title or forget that at its core, it's actually really good.
It's overkill when they do that. It's overkill.
Yeah, that happens with music a lot too.
Yeah.
So it's one I've always loved. It reminds me of when I first saw it. It really takes you back to being a little kid and just desperately wanting something for Christmas. And it's all about, am I going to get that thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uber relatable, you know, like,
Oh, yeah.
you can put yourself, and it's strange because I love that movie. It's also a big hit in our house now. I love it because as you grow up with it. When you're a kid,
Yes.
you're Ralphie. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And once you grow up, you're starting to see other sides of things. You know what I mean?
Did you ever think as a kid, well, you don't think much as a kid, but did you ever think you would identify more with Darren McGavin than you did with Billy? You, my friend, are now Darren McGavin. Just wanted to point that out.
Circle life.
And his performance is phenomenal. Like, I knew him from this movie and as Kolchak the Night Stalker. And if you just watch him in every scene, he's always doing something funny. He's reacting in hilarious ways. It is a movie that I've seen a million times, and I still find little quirks that I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
From Bob Clark, the director who brought you such family classics as Porky's and Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and that other Christmas movie he made, Black Christmas,
Oh yeah.
which probably would be some people's favorite Christmas movie. I love A Christmas Story, you know, and now Val's a huge fan of it as well. And we started a tradition a couple of years ago, which is we watch A Christmas Story and she will make me the food they eat in the film. And we'll watch that.
Oh,
we'll eat that
wow.
while we watch the movie. So she does
that's
the red mashed
perfect.
potatoes and the meatloaf. It's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
So
That's neat.
I look forward to that every year for the meal as much as the movie now.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah, I think A Christmas Story for me, it's one of those that I honestly never get sick of. I can't say that I would watch it over and over again over the course of 24 hours, but it's one of those that I could step into at any moment in its running time and thoroughly enjoy it until the end or for whatever period of time I'm watching it.
Yeah.
So many lines from that became part of my family's catchphrases after that. I don't tire of it. It makes me think of Christmas. If I think of Christmas, I think of that movie, and that movie it gives me the warm fuzzies still.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, if you guys want to, again, jump in on it to share your favorite Christmas movies with us as we roll into the holiday season. Who would have thought Peter Billingsley? He blew up into like a huge movie producer. He's like Favreau's guy. So he's tied into all the Marvel movies, and gosh, what an insane legacy. Even to just walk away from that movie. He's like, all right, I'm retired. I'm good. But yeah, an insane career there. Didn't you send something last night, Jeff, about a holiday commercial? It got me thinking about the holiday lottery commercial that I always see.
Yeah. Mine is the Corona commercial where the guy in the hut turns on the lights in the palm tree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain signs of the holidays.
Yes. And they're smart enough to run that every year because they know everybody looks for it.
Yeah, I always thought about it, like, the commercial deals that people get. There's a lottery commercial that they play, and I don't know if it's probably just PA based, but it's about gifting the lottery tickets and people walking around giving the gift of lottery scratch offs.
Yeah.
And I always thought, like, man, this commercial has been playing since I was literally in diapers.
Yeah.
These people are
exactly.
probably long gone by now.
Nope. Again, they're smart. They know people see that and they recognize it and say, hey, it's really Christmas now.
Yeah. Best wishes from the lottery gets me every time.
Yep.
And I think having something that is consistent since you were a kid, unless you hate it, it engenders good feelings toward whatever that product is.
Yeah.
Like every Easter there was the Cadbury cream eggs with
Yes, I was just thinking that.
the clucking bunny and the
Easter
bunny.
Yep.
That whole thing is it makes you want a Cadbury cream egg.
It's true. Reminds you of your childhood. Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. It's very, very powerful. I cannot tell you the number of jingles I remember word for word for products I heard as a kid. And it tends to make you feel more, inclined to buy that product because it gives you the warm fuzzies. So yeah, commercials that repeat for years and years, unless they're wildly annoying, I think that it's brilliant. Why not? And you're saving money. You're not producing a new commercial. You're dragging one out that people
Right.
already like.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, nostalgia is now a humongous market. If you want to know, just go see any major movie this holiday season.
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes I look at the slates and it's like remake, sequel, remake, ripoff, sequel, remake. Excellent.
Those are your choices.
That's about it.
But you get it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The management of this drive-in theater is happy to announce you can enjoy your favorite form of movie entertainment regardless of rain. No longer will it be necessary to let rain spoil your fun. Now you can keep your windshield clear and dry with a drizzle guard. Simply attach it to your windshield, and in a jiffy you're enjoying the movie without constantly running your windshield wipers. A drizzle guard will save you gasoline and wear and tear on your battery. After the show is over, all you do is take off your drizzle guard, roll it up, and it's ready to be used again, just like an umbrella. So next time it rains, don't sizzle in a drizzle. Get yourself a drizzle guard and enjoy the show. Drizzle guards are on sale now at the concession center.
Being that Black Friday and all the madness of the sales and whatnot are in people's heads, it's probably worth mentioning that our web store is up and running, and we have some amazing items that people have been asking for literally years, including event posters. So, Mark, why don't you give them a little info on how they can get in on gifting the world of the Mahoning to your loved ones?
When you care enough to send the very best,
That's right.
send
Yeah.
a screaming illustration of Nicolas Cage.
Boar's Head meats. it's for the family.
If I could be clear, there's no meat for sale on the website
Right.
yet. If you go to our website, which is mahoningdit.com, we have a link there to our web store, which is being managed by Chris at Spiral Rewind, who does a lot of our cool products. And it's not all of our merch yet. It's new items are being added like by the week. But currently, I believe we have some of our event posters up, past event posters that you can order. And that is one of the number one things people have asked about. They see the amazing designs that our artists like Tom Bafulco and Hayden and Chuck come up with over the years, and they live in Oregon. And they're like, I love this movie you're showing. There's no way I'm getting out to your theater to buy it. Can you send me one? And it was never really feasible for us to do that more than very occasionally. But now we can do it. It's all set up. And we also have e-gift cards available and physical plastic gift cards. We just got in. They look really slick.
Yeah.
They're on the front there, the Mahoning logo in white on black, and they look like a high-end credit card. So gift cards in general are a thing we never could offer until this year. We now have those and more items. I know Sandy is working on an exclusive website item for December. So if you just keep checking in, and we'll promote it on our socials as well, but we're very excited because it's something that we've wanted to have for a long time. And honestly, we're all just so busy during the year. It's hard to carve the time out to devote to do this properly. And now it's there.
Chris is the best. Spiral Rewind has been so amazing to us, and the idea that now he's going to be hosting the web store and really running the web store for us is amazing. And it allows Sandy to continue to get creative in the off season. She's very excited whenever she comes up with a cool item or gets an idea. She's very Sandy about it, which is why we love her.
Yes.
As you leave the theater, folks, please be careful. Don't let this happen to your car. Be sure to remove the speaker before you leave. If you should accidentally pull a speaker loose, please turn it in at our snack bar or box office. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's always a pleasure chatting with you guys. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.